All right. So, gotta. We're some of us are very excited to see this facility for
Yeah,
the first time.
sure.
Um, where do you think facility ranks in terms of priorities with recruiting?
Well, I think from a recruiting standpoint, either you have facilities or you don't. And, obviously this makes a statement of the support from the university. And now to have, what's been called one of the top facilities in the country by those that have been around is it's humbling. We're incredibly grateful. And we look forward to just using it better. I mean, we've been in it now 2 days from a standpoint of football. We went through the summer workouts, but it's totally different what we've gone through the last 2 days. So just trying to work through all the nuances, and so far so good, but it's absolutely ridiculous. So we're enjoying every minute of it.
What's your favorite part of it, or what do you think's the biggest upgrade from the old facility?
To be quite frank, everything. There's everything. I mean, it's spectacular.
You saw the mock-ups that probably got you all excited and everything, but what's it like does the real deal compare?
When I look back to when we started this process, I don't remember a lot of things. And so when I've been in the building and I've walked around, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that now. I remember this now. I will never build a house. I don't care about handles anymore or what different things are, but just thankful that Jim Phillips allowed me to be obviously, very active in what we did when it came to the football spaces. And we built it all based on the players. We built it all based on the function and the flow of their day and how can we make their lives more efficient and better. And I think you'll see, I think we accomplished that goal.
Is your offense going to look any different without Justin Jackson here?
I was asked the same question about that when we lost Tyrell Sutton, and the list goes on and on of great backs. I think what we'll always do offensively is players, formations, plays. What do our guys do best and we'll try to put them in the right formations to run the plays that we think play to their strengths and then build complements off of that. I think there's always an evolution of what you're trying to do, but I would say those types of little wrinkles or changes, we'll wait till game weeks until we obviously start talking about those. But we're always going to study what we do, how we do it. We're going to study successful teams in college and pros every offseason and, try to, again, add to what we're doing. But I think it's no secret, what we do and how we do things.
Clayton was saying that he's just about 100%, and he was surprised by how the mental aspect of it was challenging to him, not just going through the enduring process of rehabilitation, but also trusting his knee mentally. How does he look to you?
Well, again, I'm sure he articulated himself really well about how he feels mentally, and that was one of the things that we kind of preempted, and he's been working with Dr. Julie Sutcliffe. Holistically, we try to do all of our rehab with that in mind, that the mental aspect is probably the most challenging, most difficult, and last hurdle to get over. And, I lived through that. So those are some of the things that he and I talked about going back, to the mid-'90s when, it was getting out at practice for the first time, getting rolled up, getting cut block for me. A little different situation for him. He's in a purple jersey anyways, which is non-contact. But I think he was a little bit surprised maybe, I don't know, maybe I'd say early to mid-July on just how things were continuing to progress and just how good he felt. So, work to be done, and I'm sure he talked about that, but we're going to bring him along slow. We've got him on a pitch count right now, and he's looked good for 2 days. So, we'll see how things continue to progress.
He says he wants to play game one,
Yep.
But how do you feel about your backups with Green, Marty, and Smith? Are you comfortable with them? Or?
Yeah, I wouldn't have recruited them unless I was comfortable with them. But, that competition will be ongoing. If you come out to practice, there'll be days, again, like we were in spring ball, where one guy will take the reps with the twos, maybe the next guy will take the rep with the threes, and reps with the ones, and then we'll just rotate it the next day. And we got a little bit more, names to the mix with Jason and Hunter, but we've got, this isn't our first time going through this, Mick and I, so we'll work through that plan, and then the guys know. I mean, we're very transparent with them. They know where they stand, what they need to do, and how they need to do things. And I'll let Mick's track record of quarterback development speak for itself. If if Clayton's ready mentally and he's cleared physically from a standpoint of our medical team, then we'll rock and roll and go in the opener. And if not, we'll have a plan, for that. And again, we've gone through that and we've learned from maybe some of our past experiences that hopefully we'll be able to draw upon. But my anticipation is that we'll have just transparent communication with those guys, and Clayton included, and figure it out as we go.
For those last couple of years, you got off to a little bit of a slow start.
It's a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to be nice.
Yeah, thanks.
It's early.
Yeah, right.
And this year you got Purdue right out of the
Yep.
gate, road conference game. Anything you're doing differently with the team to start fast?
Well, I'll go to the positive. The previous 10 years we were pretty good early.
Yeah.
So, if you continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, that's the definition of insanity. So, we've got to look at everything. Yes, absolutely, we're making changes. Specifically, some little tweaks here and there to the practice plan, and maybe the ebb and flow. We now have gone to the 29-day calendar with 25 practices, which is uniform across college football. This is the first year of having that. So I did a lot of research getting prepared for this camp with our medical team, with our strength staff, pulling a lot of our analytic numbers that we've had the last few years. And, I think from a standpoint of my management of the squad going at the beginning of camp, I think we've gone maybe a little bit too hard too early. And we've had to play catch up to get our guys to recover. And so we're just enacting a little bit of a different plan here as we start things up, and hopefully that'll turn out some different results from a preparation standpoint. And then we got to take that preparation with us to a huge test. We understand the challenge in front of us. Anytime you play a conference road game, it's a challenging task, and then you add gasoline to that fire with having to play it in the opener. So. It's an important next 3.5 weeks, without a doubt, for us to get ready for that game. But we know they'll be ready, and we know it will be rocking, and we know it'll be on national TV, and it's a great opportunity for us to show that we're ready. And, we'll assume all those things, and Jeff will do a great job with his squad. He's an outstanding football coach, and, he and Coach Hazel did a great job recruiting, and I thought Jeff did a terrific job, he and his staff last year. So we know what we're getting into.
Can you talk a little bit about the leadership role that Jeremy Larkin is stepping into?
Well, I'll expect Lark just to be himself. He's always been a high-energy guy, and that room. I mean, you take out a pretty dominant personality in Justin, right? And I think in the spring it was a little bit different from a standpoint. Okay, who's going to, and how's it going to go down? And I think Lark and Johnny Moe and Chad Hanaoka are three of the older guys that are in that room that have been through a lot. And then Jesse Brown was elected to our leadership council as a younger player, which I think speaks to who he is and how he carries himself. So I think it won't be a leadership of one, just like it wasn't a leadership of one with Justin. I mean, that was a pretty dynamic group, and a group that I thought was very productive for us collectively over the last 2 years especially, right? So I just expect those guys to be themselves. But they've got some pretty good leaders around them too, with that returning group up front in the offensive line, and Clayton, and some receivers with a lot of experience.
Who are some of the younger guys that you expect to compete for playing time early on?
Can you give me a couple weeks? So the short answer is all of them, because I get to play them all now in 4 games. So simply put, play them all and let God sort them out, right? Isn't that the way we're all going to approach it? We're just going to go rock. And but if past years are any indication, when I first started off as the head coach, I took a pretty strong philosophical approach that I wanted to emulate some programs that were similar to us that I researched pretty hard to build the program. And I really felt like we enacted that plan pretty well, where we didn't play a lot of guys. We redshirted an overwhelming majority of the class. And class is back-to-back years, so we can become an older team. And then once we were able to become an older team, then I was able to start to begin to play more freshmen based on their ability to contribute and what we anticipated. To where last year we played double-digit guys because they earn roles. So it'll be very different, not only for us, but it'll be very different, I think, from across the country. It'll be a week-by-week thing. It'll be fun for you guys to watch. You guys are going to probably have like your game count you know, and once they go to game 5, you're like, oh, I guess they're playing them now, you know. So it'll be very, very different, to say the least. And I think what we'll have is a group of guys that come out of camp that are ready to play, and they'll be in the mix right away. And then after the first game, you'll say, so is your plan to play them in 4 games or the whole year? And I'll say, I don't know. I've got flexibility until each one of those guys crosses over that 4-game threshold. I think we'll come out of camp with a group of guys that are really close to playing in the opener but may not be ready. And then we'll have a group of guys that probably need another couple of months to learn the systems, get stronger, get in better shape, whatever it may be, or maybe even just have a role become available for them. And then maybe you'll see those guys in November if they haven't played already. So I'm a huge fan of the rule. I'm incredibly thankful for Todd Berry, the executive director of the American Football Coaches Association. You know, Todd came up with this concept, I think, like about a decade ago. And it's taken us that long as coaches to finally have, I guess, the rest of the association figure out this is good for student athletes. I mean, we went from when I played with a neck roll to what, from 10 games to now we're playing 12 regular season. If you make it to the championship, you're 13. You get in a playoff, 14. If you make it to the championship, 15 games. We haven't added any more roster spots or scholarships. So this, from a health, safety, and well-being standpoint, is, in my 13 years as the head coach, the best rule change that I can think of for that. So I'm excited about it.
Getting back to the quarterbacks after Thorson, how do you see that kind of shaping out? What do each of the guys bring to the table that are some of their specific best assets and qualities, and how do they fit to the offense?
Yeah, well, TJ's the oldest guy in that room from after Clayton. He's got great system knowledge. He's obviously from an amazing pedigree family-wise, and you know, I think he's got a lot of trust built up with his teammates for how he's done things and what he's done throughout his time here. You know, Aiden would be next, and you know, I'd say both him and Andrew both have, you know, great athleticism and big-time arms, and they're learning and growing in the system. And you know, both have shown flashes, at least to myself and Mick over the last couple of years, that they can be players here for us and contribute to help us win a championship. And I'm obviously getting to know Jason and Hunter. I mean, I've watched them throw now for 2 days, so I like them. But outside of that, you know, we've been in shorts. We have 2 days of install in, but both kids are absolutely terrific.
For those first 3 guys, Green, Smith, and Marty, has that kind of competition aspect brought out anything in them over this kind of 6 weeks of summer?
When I look at the summer all 3 had, I thought they all busted their rear ends. I mean, they know the opportunity. I mean, you go back now, again, I've been doing this for a little while with quarterbacks. There's certain windows when that opportunity is there. Maybe you were the backup or maybe the 3 for you to jump through, and it doesn't happen every year. You know, this is one of those off seasons, so all 3 of those guys are working and doing everything they can to be prepared to be our starter. And if Clayton's ready to go, then to be our backup. And again, I don't want to speak for the guys, but Mick and I are fully transparent. This is not something like we're in a back room talking and then we go and we do something, you know, that they have no idea what we're doing. So, no, all 3 have been who they are, and they've been busting their rear ends. Proud of them.
Seems like the last few Augusts at the beginning of camp, we're always talking about the offensive line and question marks, and this year you got 4 returning starters. I mean,
Yeah,
how's it feel? Is it a little comforting this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's and then they got to play with that experience. That's a group that, you know, good, bad, or indifferent. You know, they've been bullseyes. Because when we have the all-time leading rusher, all everybody wants to talk about is sacks. It's like, okay, well, whatever. You know, I guess we live in a negative world, so we'll only focus on the negatives. But that group, I think, has been really solid. But we have to be more consistent, right? We have to be more consistent, and that's something that we're really striving for, and not only with the group that's coming back, but the entire room. And you know, that's something I think will be an ongoing process for forever, as long as, you know, I think football is football. I don't think that's unique to us. I mean, there's very few places you go. You know, our offensive line is dominant every year, every game. Typically everywhere you go, it's always going to be a work in progress, because that group has got to move people, and they've got to get stronger, and they've got to get their confidence up, because when they were in high school, they were bigger than everybody. You know, and they dominated, and they get to this level, and pretty much across the board, unless you're a freak, you got to go through that process all over again. And for some guys, it takes a little bit longer than others. And we just got to do a great job coaching them and hopefully have competitive depth that when we don't have someone playing consistently, we can make a change. We've had some years that we haven't had enough competitive depth, and we've got to do a better job evaluating talent. We got to make sure that we don't have some, lack of depth in classes, which we've had some issues with, and we've had some injuries, but those are all excuses. We've got to just do a better job, and then the guys have just got to keep developing. And then our quarterbacks have got to help them. When we go through each year and whatever, you have, let's just say 25, 30 sacks. That's way too many. We know that. But then you get through your off-season study, and 8 to 10 of them are on the quarterbacks because they didn't get the ball out of their hand. Then you do your study, and 75% of them are for less than 1 yard. So that's why stats are for losers. All right. Nobody says, well, the backs, you're getting so many TFLs. You're giving, you have more tackles for loss than you have sacks, but nobody actually looks at that stat. So, we just got to keep developing and keep getting better. And that group's attitude, I think, is in a great spot right now. And I think the young group that is behind them, they're learning, and that's all we could ask.
Do you have that competitive depth
Where?
in the line?
In the offensive line?
Yeah.
Can I get pads on? I mean, everybody looks really good in shorts. I can't. I mean, I think so. I liked where they were at in spring. But then, you got some D linemen, so, I'll know a little bit more and kind of go from there. I mean, I'd always love to have 7 or 8 guys. That's who we're going with, and let's rock. But you don't always have that luxury. So,
How good were they at the end of last year? Obviously, they improved quite a bit, but where, in your eyes, at the end of the year?
Well, over the last 4 years, a majority of these young men have paved the way for the all-time leading rusher in Northwestern football history, period. So.
Okay.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I just don't think that story gets told. It was just, that's why Justin, every time you heard him speak, he talked about that group, because it's like he got those yards in spite of our offensive line was the prevailing attitude. And it's like, that's kind of not how football works, but it is what it is.
What do you think?
Going back to the center, how have you seen, since it's on campus now, how have you seen that affect the team community?
Are you talking about the Walter Athletic Center?
Walter Athletic.
Yeah, well, for the guys that were here, the freshmen and sophomores that are living in the dorms, or the freshmen, I should say, I mean, it's a 30-second walk to the west entrance. So that compared to a mile commute and the different nuances that we had to do just to get the guys in the building, that is just, again, I don't think we quite understand just how impactful that will be until we go through this for maybe a whole calendar year. But everything's under one roof. I mean, if you heard Jared speak yesterday at the dedication, if he went to get treatment and go to his locker, that was in one building. If he went to meetings to see his coach, that was in another building. If he went to have training table, that was in another building. If he went to see his academic advisor, that was in another building. And if he had to go somewhere, it was actually another 300-yard walk to go to practice. Okay, so I just gave you about 5 different buildings that are all under one roof now for us. So just the efficiency and the upgrades in technology and the upgrades in our weight training facility, the guys just don't want to leave. And you'll see, we built them a man cave, and we built them a pretty cool little party house as a locker room. They aren't all functional yet, but that was the whole design. Again, we're going to start with the players always here. And what do they need? And more importantly, what do they want? We wanted to create kind of an apartment for them and a pretty cool little nightclub for them in their locker room. And then we wanted to create kind of a man cave for them in their players' lounge. So, something that they take pride in and something that we've never had. And, so far, mission accomplished.
How do you see the safety shaping up this year? I mean, a lot's been made about losing Justin,
Yeah.
but I mean, Godwin he's a great player.
Yeah, Godwin and Kyle, played a lot of ball for us and made a ton of plays. And, anytime. Again, that's the cool thing about college football. I mean, every year it's 25% graduation, 25% new players. And we've got, I think, a really competitive group back there. We've got a new voice in the leadership of the secondary with Matt McPherson. And anytime you have a coaching change, there's a new dynamic, there's a new personality. And, Matt cut his teeth, so to speak, with Jerry Brown back when he was a graduate assistant. So a lot of the things that are fundamental to us and how we do things will stay consistent. But anytime there's a new voice, there's a new standard, there's a new expectation. I think there's a learning curve. I thought that was spring ball. And now I think we're starting to build on those guys becoming all on the same page. But I like the talent in that area. We're going to be obviously a little bit inexperienced, but again, 3 years ago when Kyle and Godwin were pups, what are you going to do when Brendan Smith, Brad Phillips, and the list goes on and on. So that's what happens when you stay at the same school for a while. You're kind of used to this, and you enact your plan. We roll the ball out, we let them compete, and to your question, the same thing with the O-line. I don't know where that competitive depth is because no one's had to make a tackle yet. They've just gone and kind of tagged the guy off, and I don't think we're going to get a chance to tag guys in Purdue and have it count. So that's kind of where we're at. Yeah. Yeah. No, that not in Big Ten ball. So.
In terms of the Superbet group, it's obviously pretty open competition. Although Trey and Cam certainly had the most time on the field last year. What excites you about that competition so far with so many guys?
Probably that we have depth there. They're all kind of unique. And that's that position. I mean, I don't think most guys are all the same when it comes to that role. I've really been impressed by Cam. You know, a young man who's been through a lot and understands what it's going to take to go through the grind of being in that role. And, you know, Trey playing for us as a true freshman last year in kind of a role. He just was a role player, and we knew what he'd have to get experienced with last year to be prepared for this year. So it was twofold to get him that, and then also hopefully have him improve, and I thought he did throughout the whole deal. But I like the group a lot. I think that group's got a pretty good connectivity. I think they've got a pretty good camaraderie, and kind of look forward to seeing how those pieces shake out.